When you look into my eyes, you understand what I'm saying? Let me say it to you slowly, and it may sound scandalous. I don't think that you can handle this.
All right, let's move on over to Survivor. First, let's recap week 11. The simple thing to say is that all the favorites won. Some of them won ugly, but they all seem to win. The highest owned winners for the week were, first and foremost, the New England Patriots on Thursday night. They defeated the New York Jets. They were 40% owned. Next up was Baltimore, who defeated Cleveland in Cleveland. They were 16.4% owned. And the third highest was Houston, was on the road facing the Tennessee Titans, and they were 15.1% owned. Houston and Baltimore made it kind of interesting, but they got the victories. As far as the losing side, the one team that people bought in the most that ended up letting them down was the Atlanta Falcons, who lost to Carolina in overtime. They were owned by, not so big, 2.5%. At 0.6%, 0.5%, and 0.5% were Minnesota, Kansas City, and the Los Angeles Chargers, all of them losers who disappointed the few that actually bought into them. All this totals out to just over 4% more eliminated this week. We still have 7 more weeks to go. So we're going to move on to week 12. Mike Steph, I am going to talk about the biggest spread. You tell me if you're interested in any of these games or if you want to go off the board as far as Survivor. Ready?
All right.
We have the Baltimore Ravens. They are at home facing the New York Jets. They are 13-point favorites. We have the Seattle Seahawks on the road, 13-point favorites against the Tennessee Titans. We have the Detroit Lions at home, 10-point favorites over the New York Giants. We have the New England Patriots, 8.5-point favorites heading into Cincinnati. The San Francisco 49ers are 7-point favorites at home facing the Carolina Panthers. The Green Bay Packers are 6.5-point favorites facing the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers are at home. The Los Angeles Rams are at home, 6.5-point favorites facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And lastly, a game that we just discussed in a previous episode, the Buffalo Bills are 5.5-point favorites on the road versus Houston. Mike Steph, there's a lot of pretty big spreads here. Are you interested in any of these games, or are you going off the board?
Well, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to give you my gimme, which would be Seattle over the Titans. I just feel like Seattle, even though they're going to be on the road, time difference because they're going to be having the early 1 o'clock kickoff. I don't see them losing 2 games in a row. And as horribly as Sam Darnold played last week, their defense should be more than enough to overwhelm Tennessee, who I believe lost Calvin Ridley for the season. So, they don't have that many weapons anyway. And that just takes one piece off the chessboard for Cam Ward. So, yeah, Seattle would be a gimme. Now, to go off the board, and this is, people might misconstrue this as being personal. And it's not personal. It's just like logical. And one team that you might actually be able to sneak through this week, because I'm quite sure nobody has picked them all season, the New Orleans Saints over the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, I said it. Atlanta is without their starting quarterback, Michael Penix, who's going to be on IR and might miss the rest of the season with a knee injury. Kirk Cousins, in his limited time in mop-up duty or what have you, has looked less than a shell of himself. And the Saints, even though they're 2-8, they've been a tough out for a lot of people. Ask the New York Giants. The New York Giants thought they were going down there to get a gimme a couple weeks ago with Jackson Dart, and they coughed it up 5 straight times. Saints at home. Falcons are licking their wounds, realizing that their season is over. So I think this would be a perfect opportunity to sneak the Saints through, because if not, when else are you going to put the Saints in? So that would be for my long shot for Survivor. Saints over the Falcons.
That is something. I never thought about that one. Also, Drake London will likely be out next week. He banged up his knee, and he's looking doubtful for next week. And actually, you surprised me with the Seahawks pick, as bad as they looked last week. But I do think you're right there. The thing is, we discussed this last week. I purposely did not play the Ravens last week so I could play them this week. I hate to pick on your Jets back-to-back weeks. I really do. But Baltimore has to keep winning, and I think they're just a superior team. So, if you don't take Baltimore this week and you still have them, the best games they have are versus the Bengals, but there's a good chance that Burrow will be back by then, which I think makes it a much harder out. The other game that I was looking at that seems like a pretty much gimme to me is the Detroit Lions at home versus the Giants. I'm picking on New York teams. As far as Detroit goes, their easiest game left is Dallas in Week 14. I don't really like facing Dallas in a Survivor, because that offense will put up points. The game that I have that I'm looking at that's completely off the board, Mike Steph, is the 2-8 Cleveland Browns versus the 2-8 Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are 3-point favorites. Now, here's the thing. I'm not sure which side I'm on this yet, because the Browns do have the defense, but Sanders looks so bad. I don't necessarily think they're going to look much better a week later. I don't like that offense at all, even if no matter who's quarterbacking. And the Raiders look pretty bad too. So, it's jump ball. But the one thing about it is that either one of those teams, you get them out the way and you clear out a spot that you have a legit team later in the season. I feel like a lot of people feel like Survivor's almost done because there's been a big reduction of entries. I think my original league has about 5% of entries left. But because Survivor is winner takes all, that's not a small amount. You have to keep winning. And I think that this might be one of the weeks that I take a stand once I decide if I want the Browns or the Raiders.
Welcome, everybody, to the Gimmick Infringement podcast. I am Brad Winchester.
And I am Tyler McDowell Blanken. Join us every week on GI, where we talk about what happened in pop culture, our lives, and most importantly, professional wrestling.
Now, not necessarily a Survivor pick. This is Mike Steph's pick of the week.
Yeah, I have a pick of the week this week that might surprise you because it's going counter to Mo picking on New York teams. Now, of course, if we're talking about New York teams, everybody will expect me to talk about my New York Jets. Guess what? I'm talking about the Giants. Detroit is favored by 10.5. Jameis Winston, in his first start of the season, had the Giants competitive and in position to win against the Green Bay Packers. With Dan Campbell still at the helm, still trying to figure out exactly how he's going to dial up his plays, being the fact that he's in charge of the offense. And the Giants, even though they have nothing to play for, so therefore they should be loosey-goosey, and they have a new head coach in Mike Kafka in his second full game, Jameis might give one up, but Jameis going to put some points up on the board in the dome. So, yeah, Giants plus 10.5. That's Mike Steph's pick of the week. Yeah.
This is a 19 Media Group presentation.
I'm very confused.
Yeah. There was something I was going to say, and I totally forgot. So we can move on.